go here to Matt, and he says, Quintera went over the metrics Profar had career highs in. He was obviously juicing last year. He was lucky to be an MLB roster in 2023.
Well, that's why he got a $1.5 million contract. It was minimum. He had to prove himself, but he proved himself. But the only glitch to that is the reality that he was drug tested 8 times, and they drug test you anytime they want. They call you, you got to be there, and you got to take the test. And they test you for steroids, they test you for PEDs and whatever else might, social drugs, etc. He never tested positive. And I would assume with masking agents, you're tested that much because they start from the minute you show up at spring training, and they can come back 3 days later and test you again, or 3 months later, or once you come out of a game, you get a notation down the hallway. You got to be tested in the 3rd week of June. There's no advance notice. It's right there in front of you. But he tested clean every time. So it leads me to believe he took something in the off season. And I understand supplements and guys do stuff, but why would you take something beyond what you normally have taken without going to the team trainer or going to the medical people that the union provides you and say, I have been given this. Should I take this as an add-on supplement for off-season training? Why would you not do that? I just have a hard time believing the guy would cheat. No?
Your old colleague used to say, Jim Rome, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So, we like Profar. We love Profar. I don't want to disparage his character. I just know that it's such a competitive business. They're going to be looking for an edge. And people might have said, hey, man, you take this and it's masked, and we'll mask the masking agent, and they've got all these schemes to get around it. I can imagine that's kind of going on. So, we need to find out more facts. Some of this is rushing to judgment, making certain assumptions. You just hate to see it because Profar is a good dude. I saw a guy on Twitter posted the stats of Profar's season last year compared to the final season before Robinson Cano's first drug suspension, and they were almost identical.
Okay. So matters of the opinion, Profar's are cheap. You got an opinion? Feel free. Fans forum chat box is open. Let's move on. Next one, John.
Okay, we'll get Matt one more time because he's putting money behind it. And he says, hey, opinions on the direction of sports radio and podcasts.
Well, sports radio has changed. Corporate ownership has really wrecked local radio. It's a big issue. Sports talk radio in San Diego is a shell of what it used to be. Look who's doing the shows, board ops and guys like that. There's a lot more stars on street corners that well, the reason sports talk radio was a success who don't have jobs because ownership won't pay them. Corporate radio refuses to pay them. It's a big issue. Podcasts have exploded. Man, there is so much noise out there. Everybody, except my golden retriever, is doing a podcast right now. At the end of the day, it's cool. Everybody's got opinions. It's kind of free form, if you will. Everybody does it really differently. That's okay. You make your choices. What John and I have been able to do, and this is all his bleeping fault. We just started our 3rd year together, yelling at each other. We have 2.3 million followers, and we haven't updated that stat, but that was as a couple of months ago. 2.3 million have sampled us, and then if you add in all the other social media stuff that we add on to what we do with the podcast and etc., I think John came up with a number of 6 million.
Well, no, it's just be clear. 2.3 million are the number of impressions. Okay. And that's a conservative number because some of the tools that we have only look backwards like 90 days. And that was meant to be a kind of an overview of 2024
of growth.
Yeah. So the bottom line is that, yeah, this podcast is exploding. And I like to think of this as sort of this live stream is sort of the launching pad for all the video clips and one man's opinions and all the different things that we post everywhere on social media. But to your point, though, yeah, the business model has changed. The thing that I find crazy is that we've gone from this sort of corporate, journalism, talk radio, television, ESPN, studio sports. Then it's transitioned to the podcast, independent people and journalists doing their own thing. But now it's come full circle. So now we watch live podcasts on FS1 and ESPN. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's essentially what Stephen A. Smith's show is.
Yep.
And all the other guys that have their own show.
Like I say, there's a lot of noise out there right now.
Well, yeah, but there's so much to talk about. Yeah, and we love talking about, we love listening. It's all good.
Okay, thank you for the input, Matt. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to David. And he goes, hey, explains why the Padres didn't offer Profar a new contract. He was damaged goods. Atlanta Braves should sue either Profar or, he had a correction, the Padres. They purchased someone they thought was a relevant player.
Well, he's put his contract in jeopardy. Now, there'd be a war with the union if they tried to terminate the rest of the contract once the suspension is open, but he violated the contract. So they could get out of the $42 million that is owed for him the rest of the way. But that being said, they have a massive hole on their roster and they don't have a leadoff hitter, et cetera. And they had hoped that he would be the bridge to get him till Acuna came back with all the other people. That's a really good team, but that team is reeling right now because of injuries. And now you lose Profar on top of it. I mean, you talk about having a miserable first week of the baseball season, not only 0-7, but injuries to their pitching staff. And then, by the way, they lost their number 2 starter, Reynaldo Lopez, shoulder surgery. He pitched the opening surgery.
So he's done for the year?
Well, he's done indefinitely. Scar tissue, they believe, in the surgery. He had a 1.93 ERA. He was a number 2 starter behind Chris Sale. And then they pitched Hector Neris and they DFA'd him, and he was supposed to be one of the setup closers. What a miserable first week for the Atlanta Braves. The Padres did not bid on him because the price tag went through the roof. They're not paying him $15 million. They couldn't do it with their payroll. And I'm not sure that they thought he was a $15 million player. I had been told they were willing to go as high as $5 million a year for maybe a couple of years and a third-year option. I don't think they had any idea that he would be juiced. I think they got broadsided by this too, but they just, from a financial standpoint, they were not going to pay him that amount of money, and they couldn't just because of management, new leadership, the luxury tax, and all. Padres just couldn't do any of that stuff. That's why there were virtually no offseason acquisitions of significance just because of the payroll thing. I don't think they had any knowledge that Profar was doing anything wrong.
Well, he was clean. I mean, he took 8 tests last season. He passed them all. But it is a little interesting that he got caught for a masking agent, which makes you wonder if the masking agent was being used last season. But I love Profar. Again, I'm speculating. I love Profar and I wish the best of him. But one other angle to this that you brought up is, why did he come back to the Padres? We all agree that I don't think the Padres are prepared to pay him $15 million a year. I don't think he's that level of a player. No. But isn't it interesting how in the offseason we were talking about how they were cutting back the payroll and there wasn't going to be enough money, and the era of, the Seidler ownership of the Padres is going backwards, and now suddenly they're throwing out big money contracts at Jackson Merrill.
What? The only difference is the contract they gave the kid, the natural, Old Country.
Yeah.
That's deferred. That does not kick in until 2026.
Well,
so it doesn't impact this year's payroll.
It's backloaded, not deferred.
Yeah, it's backloaded.
Yeah.
It starts a year from now. This sounds weird to say. I guess the only question I have from a Profar standpoint, from a Jackson Merrill standpoint, is everybody is firmly of the opinion, superstar here. Well, why would you sign a 9-year contract that locks you to $15 million per season from now forever? Now, if I were Old Country, if I were the kid, if I were the future, the natural, I want to stay here. Great respect the organization. It's kind of become a real fan's favorite. Sign a 9-year deal, but put an opt-out after 5 years. If you become what many people think you're going to become, which is real superstar, after the 5th year, opt out and renegotiate whatever the state-of-the-art top dollar is for a superstar. Otherwise, he's locked in at 15 forever. It's a big issue.
It's funny, this whole thing, because a lot of people saying, oh, good on Jackson Merrill. It's not all about the money. And Merrill made kind of an indirect swipe at Juan Soto during the press conference. And people are thinking like, yeah, he just kind of gave in, that the Padres got a sweetheart deal. I look at it differently. To me, this was like a win-win. Merrill got what he wanted. The Padres got what they wanted
and needed.
And then there's room there to surround Merrill with other great players. So he's got a good future ahead of him. And as Padre fans, we're happy. Everybody wins. It's win, 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 win all the way around the table. So I think Merrill isn't necessarily sacrificing, what he could be making big money. He's doing what he wants according to his own values.
Okay, I got no argument with that,
Yeah.
but I'm just looking at it from the quote real business side, that if he turns out to be what people are projecting him to be, he'll be grossly underpaid by year 5 of the contract when he could have been a free agent. Whereas if he had an opt-out, then go back and say, opt-out, I loved it in San Diego. Let's negotiate a true state-of-the-art contract.
Well, he could also get hurt and his career could be over. Either way, whenever you sign guys this early in their career, both sides are taking a gamble.
On we go. Fans Forum. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to Carlos. He goes, Lee, the Dodgers won an NL record 111 games in 2022 and 106 in 2019. The 2025 team is deeper and better. What makes you think that they can't win 117?
Anything is possible, but understand there's some really good teams. By the way, Dodger Blue goes to Philadelphia on Friday night, big weekend series. You got Philadelphia, you got Atlanta, you got the Mets. You obviously got the Padres and a really improved Arizona Diamondbacks team, which was pretty good last season. So there's not everybody in the National League on that schedule is a walkover. No, you're correct. The Dodgers are really, really good, but it's such a grind of a season. And, you saw how many injuries the Dodger pitching staff had last year. Who's to say some of that might not reoccur? Granted, they got a lot of guys coming back, and there's still a bunch of guys on the DL that they think are going to be ready to pitch, as May turns to June. So there's still some more arms to be delivered, but to win right now, to win 110, that to me is an enormous ask just because of the injury factor in Major League Baseball and the fact there's some pretty good teams in the National League. Yes? No? Full of crap? You agree? What do you think?
Well, I can't imagine, assuming everyone stays healthy, that there will be any game this season where the Vegas bookmakers are going to have the Dodgers as the underdog. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't matter. They could be on the road, playing Philly. They're going to be favored. And then they're probably going to have a lot more fan money behind them too. So could they win 117? Yeah. But 116 is the record, right?
Yeah. Mariners.
The Mariners.
And the old back in the day Chicago Cubs, 116.
Back when they only played 154, which is even more impressive. So, yeah, I mean, the Dodgers, Dodgers, they could do it. They gone 8-0. I thought for sure they were going to lose last night. And then Ohtani just hits the bomb at the end and everyone goes home happy.
I think they're 8-0, and I think 4 or 5 of them are come from behind wins already.
They're just so loaded.
9 innings, pal. Got to play 9 innings.
It's unbelievable.
Okay, we move on.
Okay, I want to get this one in here quickly because it's such a great comment. And this is from Neil. He says, hey, for old time's sake, can you please do your radio show intro with the cities and everything?
From Baja to the Canadian Rockies, up and down the West Coast, I want to talk sports with you. What was the favorite phrase? Encinitas, El Cajon, get off your ass and get on the air. That work?
There's just you always would do the alliteration with like you say, Escondido, El Cajon, Encinitas, because they all started with E.
Yeah,
I'd like that. And then sometimes you would call out little neighborhood names in there just to make it work. And the Jim Rome likes to always say, talk to me, Rancho Santa Margarita, which is really long. You probably use that.
I always walked around looking to hit somebody's hot button. Thank you.
You did. You did a great job back then.
You still hooked.
Yeah.
What I'll say about you.
It was just great radio back in the 90s. I think that's awesome. Okay, let's bounce around here. And Jason says, Niners having a white flag? Not even. Big draft coming.
They do have a lot of draft picks, but that means you got to hit on a whole bunch of draft picks. They've gone through transition. I think it'll be hard on Kyle Shanahan. I mean, there's no doubt that he's got Brock Purdy, but they do have Christian McCaffrey, but there's an injury issue there. And then they traded Jordan Mason. There is no Debo. Ayuk is not going to be ready to start the season. They don't believe. There's age, and they've had to let go a lot of guys and a lot of fierce competitors. Some of them on the defense, led by Dre Greenlaw and all that. So there's a lot of changes coming to San Francisco. So this might be a bit of a transition year. Now, transition does not mean going 4-13, as long as Brock Purdy is standing upright. But they do have a salary cap issue, but that's happened a whole pile of places. So we'll just see what the draft brings. But they do have a lot of draft picks.
Well, Lynch didn't offer up that, hey, it's kind of a rebuilding year. He didn't do that. I mean,
no.
So it's your speculation that they're waving the white flag.
Well, I mean, Jed York said we had to let 17 guys go because we got to take care of your quarterback.
Yeah, but they got every year on the roster, you got to blow this thing up and rebuild it every time. So, and again, part of it, I think, is a lot. There's still gamesmanship going on because of the draft coming up.
Okay,
let's keep moving here, and we'll go to Steven. And he says, I just listened to the Profar segment. HCG is an injection. He knows what he was doing. PEDs are always evolving to beat testing, but once the testing catches up, people get caught.
Well, that's what happened to Manny Ramirez. And again, testing has been refined. It's a lot better now than it was 3 years ago, than it was 5 years ago. I remember the first time that they invoked HGH testing for players. And the Padres had a left-handed reliever, Joe.
I know who you're talking about.
Really cool guy. Left-handed setup guy.
Yeah, like about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I asked him about it. And usually players don't like to talk about drug testing. He was just very open. It was his final year that he was there pitching. He said, they took 5 vials of blood. He said, I thought I was going to pass out. They were testing me for everything. So, I mean, but again, the testing procedures are better. The protocols are better, and it's tougher to beat these things. But yet, I mean, there's still suspensions in baseball for PEDs, but most of them are involving Caribbean kids, very young, who don't have knowledge, who are buying stuff off the black market in all these Caribbean cities. And they play baseball because they're trying to get the hell off the island and trying to get into pro sports and make a payday and all that. To have a veteran at this point of his career, I don't believe anybody on the major league roster last year, anybody tested positive for any of the HGH meds, which is a PED and a steroid. Not one person, because the players, I don't think they're beating the system. The players just aren't dabbling in it, but the bulk, there might have been 31 guys in the minor leagues from rookie league all the way to AAA that got suspended for 40 to 80 games last year because of those positive tests for HGH or PEDs. But those are young guys who I just don't think have very much knowledge about what to do, what not to do, and what decisions to make.
Yeah. I mean, if you're on the Dominican Republic, I mean, that's a whole other thing.
World.
Yeah. And these kids, they want to be superstars like the heroes. They want to go to America. And it's hard for them. So I understand that. But to Steven's point, if this was an injection, okay, like Ozempic or something, if it was an injection, then definitely Profar knows what he's doing. I mean, right?
Well, just who gave him the injection? Is it a physician? I mean, is a club sanctioned physician? Is somebody in Venezuela?
Well, wasn't it like Canseco getting shots like up in his buttocks?
Yeah,
that was back in the 80s,
50 years ago.
Yeah, like they were in the clubhouse talking about it. And by the way, speaking of drug tests, did you ever remember the Whizzinator?
Yeah.
The prosthetic device you'd whip out for the urine test.
Who was the player?
It was a guy for the Vikings that got busted.
Yeah, NFL players, a running back, Ontario Smith. Just these stupid people who thought they could beat this thing, and he wound up getting suspended. And his career was never the same after that. And he was a pretty good running back. He was from Oregon. He went to the University of Oregon and wound up with the Minnesota Vikings and did this and got suspended. He's not the only dummy out there, but yeah, there's a lot of dummies out there.
That's just funny, I think. Okay, let's go here to Aztec Mike. And he says, hey, Hacksaw, El Cajon is here. How about the Aztec Dutcher and staff keeping it together so far?
Does the word loyalty come into play here? It's an intangible. That's what I was told, was that Magoon Guath, I think, was a little bit taken back at the intensity of the Zoom calls, the pressure points, the things that were said. Not that anything was wrong, but I think when he stepped back, took a deep breath, then he understood the relationship with Dutcher. And then I don't know if it's a fear thing. Maybe it's a maturity thing. Maybe he felt much more comfortable. I use the word comfort zone, that's one of the reasons he elected to stay here for one more year and continue to grow. Hopefully he doesn't go to the NBA, change his mind, and get influenced, because he's not ready for that. Another year here would be really, really special for him. So, but I do think the intangible of Dutcher relationship, history, legacy, I think that weighs into this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, he's built a culture there. I mean, just think about how far. I mean, you always hear the story that Fisher was handing out tickets and everything else. but just even the time Dutcher's been involved, it's gone up multiple levels. I mean, it's just remarkable. So there's a guy that I follow on Facebook. His name's Ken Locotti, and does like deep dive analysis of Aztecs basketball. And he was of the opinion that he doesn't think Bird or Guath are going to go to the NBA. He says they'll enter the process,
get evaluated.
They're going to understand an evaluation. But he says right now they're talented players, but they still have a body of a college freshman. Yeah. They're not ready for the NBA.
A lot of work to do. Another year in the nutrition program, another year in the off-season weight training program, another year of maturity and learning about the inner facets of the game will make Guath bigger and stronger, and probably will make Bird more mature or maybe a more complete player. Because I don't think you can view yourself as an NBA player when you're going 1 for 9 shooting the basketball, and at the most important games of the season, you didn't have a basket in 40 minutes as your team was down by 40 points. That doesn't look good on the resume. So, and I'm denouncing the kids as a tough damn game to play, and the tournament is really tough because that's a whole different level of competition. And you only walk down this hallway one time in your life, and I think the opportunity to stay with Brian Dutcher, grow, and polish your game. I mean, I think Jadon Ledee is a hell of a better player now, even though he's stuck in the G League. He's a much better player person by that extra year, and I think Guath and Miles Bird would be the same, and it'd be really good for the program.
Yeah, it's a great system that they've built there. Yep. But imagine if Waters is coming back for sure. Imagine if Bird and Guath don't go to the NBA, they're coming back. This team is going to be crazy deep. I mean, we knew already this, if everyone came back, they were going to be a great team. But you add in some of these new recruits into the mix. I don't know if some of these guys are going to even see many minutes.
Well, you need players, you need depth because you're going to have some injuries, etc. But you look at the veterans who've announced that they're coming back, and now you add in the Guath and Bird should be part of the cornerstones of this, and then you add the 2 transfers. He's still got 3 scholarships left to go rent a role-playing wide body. So they're not
an aircraft carrier.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
That's what use that term in the NBA.
This is the Mountain West Conference, pal. Yeah. You're in the ACC. You go get whomever you want. Here's the check.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wrote a column on my website that this is different. I mean, he's going to have trouble. Brian Dutcher, having trouble holding on to his players, and he's going to have trouble trying to compete with the big dollars that somebody's offering kids who are in the transfer portal. But that does not mean he can't call and get the best player from the University of Montana, because that's the next level. He'll reach down and he'll take somebody from from the Big Sky Conference or the Mid-American, and they're really good players everywhere. You take them and add them to the mix. I think Dutch will do that because that's who he is.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the nation has learned so much about what Brian Dutcher has built here. I mean, players want to come here to play, and they rarely leave on their own. But I was going to say
brain lock.
But I mean, it's just remarkable how well they've built this program. I'm really fired up for them.
Except it's a different world today. A whole lot different than it was a year and a half ago. And it's going to get tougher and tougher unless they get control of the NIL and the transfer portal. And that has not happened yet.
I know what I was going to say. Did you see that number one, I guess Akil Quinn was out there like helping recruiting, and trying to play a little role. And then the Xavier Thames was kind of like saying, hey man, calm down. This is some of the Twitter back and forth. It was hilarious. And then also, what is your take on Lamont Butler was trying to recruit Guath to go to Kentucky?
I'm sure he was.
And so does that seems a little weird,
No, he's in the portal. Anybody can call him and talk to him.
I know, but you want Lamont Butler, he's got to play both sides of that. He can't just say we're going to rob the Aztecs.
He took his money and he wore blue and white.
Yeah.
And he played well, had a nice season. He wept like a baby after they got eliminated. It was heartbreaking to see, but he's a good kid. He earned what he got. Totally. Wish he was still here. So be it. But he did not do anything wrong by trying to lure him to give up the red and black and put on the blue and white. But the young man made a decision. I think once he stepped away, I think he had seriously I always tell my kids, job change, career change, here's a piece of paper. On the left-hand side of that yellow notepad, you put all the positives if you make this move. On the right-hand side, you put the negatives. And I think Guath probably did that. And then there's not only the X's and O's of it, then there's the emotional attachment to what could be versus what is a known commodity. And that's probably all piece of this this conversation.
Well, imagine being on Zoom and they're saying, "Hey, man, Magoon, we love you to come here to play in Kentucky. Boy, this is part of a championship program. We go back to Adolph Ruff. We need you to sign by 6:00 tonight."
Yeah.
And he's just like, "What?" So I can understand he just sort of reeled it back. But, he said pro is what he wants to do. So I love the fact he's going to put himself into the process.
To the evaluation.
And let's see what happens.
Okay, we move on here. We got to hustle. Go ahead.
Okay, let's get a quick fun one here to Joey, and Dodger fan, Laker fan. He says, "Love the show. Hey, give my girl a shout out. I'm trying to get her to watch the show."
Joey Yarborough's got good taste. Lady in his life. I bet she's got good taste, though. I don't know why she's hanging with him, but she's invited to participate too. We ought to offer $1,000 to get somebody on the ladies' line. They'll come out of John's checkbook.
Yeah, right on. Okay, let's go here to Callan. He goes, "Afternoon, gents. All right, Saw. Coming down the stretch of the NHL regular season, who do you not want to face right now? Winnipeg, the Red Hot Blues, the Kings at home, Le Habs? React to me, damn it."
Well, Winnipeg's really hard, and Winnipeg's really good, and Winnipeg's really tough at home. Kings are unbelievable, 28-4-4 at home, and they're scoring goals from people they didn't expect to score goals, so that's been a real positive. I can't believe St. Louis is St. Louis. Whether they won 9 in a row or 10 in a row. Montreal's very young. I think you got to walk down that hallway the first time and experience postseason. And I think that's going to be a real challenge for Les Canadiens to get the playoffs, and then B, to last a round or two in the playoffs. That's a very, very young hockey team. So playoffs would be good. Playoffs would be better if the Kings hit the button that said payback, and the Kings eliminated Edmonton in the first round. By the way, if that matchup takes place, home ice advantage, LA Kings. Keep that in mind.
We talk a little more about the Ducks and the Kings on this podcast, because with a connection with the Gulls and everything. But it's just, when you said that they were 28-4-4 at home.
Yep.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, do other teams have similar home ice advantages?
Not many. No, it's just they play really well at home. I'd have to go back and look at the standings. I don't have time to do it right now, but that's got to be maybe the best home ice record of anybody in the league right now.
That's incredible. And that's at crypto.com?
Oh, yeah. Hell yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like their colors. I think their colors should be gold and purple,
for
aka
sure.
the Rogie Vachon colors, and the crown and all that.
Purple's the color of royalty.
I agree. Yeah. Okay, we move on here. Let's go to social media. Got a ton of people stacked up.
Yeah, a bunch.
Maybe we shouldn't go to social media.
Well, there's just so much here. You try to get everybody involved. So let's scroll down here a little bit to Bill. And Bill says, feeling about the great one as his record comes to an end.
The accomplishment of Wayne Gretzky was unbelievable. And he obviously made NHL expansion on the West Coast and the Sun Belt happen with his arrival with the LA Kings. Fine gentleman, crafty player. Hated to see the Kings move him. He went on to, St. Louis and finished up with the Rangers, etc. But give Ovechkin credit. He's doing this at age 38, and he's such a physical force player. He's so different. Gretzky was all style, and Gretzky was so slick in his office behind the net and in front of the crease. Ovechkin just powers away to put the puck in the net. And I think the intangible about Ovechkin, he's having to live this whole Russia-Ukraine situation. And the fact that the media keeps asking him about his relationship, friendship, or business with Putin, I think it wears on him. But boy, what a gamer! What a great hockey player he's been. One of many who have come from Russia.
Now I want to put in perspective this number of goals. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This on par with like the home run record in Major League Baseball? I mean, how difficult is this achievement?
Longevity.
Right.
Gordie Howe held the record. When I broadcast hockey, first time I met Gordie Howe and saw him play, and I was in the World Hockey Association. God, he was I think he was 48 at that point in time. He was still playing. 48. Now he was big and physical and just mean as can be, and you couldn't move him from in front of the net. And he was such a tough ass guy. He finished with 801, and Gretzky just blew by him. Now Gretzky was a different type of player. Gordie Howe got 801 as a warrior. You know, the old favorite phrase is a Gordie Howe hat trick was a goal and assist in a fight every game. So, you know, Gordie Howe was just a power forward beyond the time of power forwards. He was a monstrously big man in an era when a lot of the hockey players were small, much smaller. Gretzky was stylish and quick. Ovechkin is a cross between the bulk of Gordie Howe, not the meanness, but the bulk, and obviously the skill and the power. His shots coming off the wing, his wrist shots, he scored one last night. The goaltender never saw the puck. And it wasn't the goaltender's screen. That puck was by him, like picking him, boom.
Wow.
So very, very different. But to be able to be this productive at age 38 for Ovi, just like Gretzky was so productive at age 36. And Gordie Howe, I mean, I was shocked, John. Gordie Howe played till he was 51.
51?
In the World Hockey Association. He wanted to continue to play, and he was productive. He wanted to wait for his two kids, Mark and Marty, to get there, and they got there with him, and they played together with the Hartford Whalers, Gordie and Houston Aeros. Yeah, so interesting. So good question. Thanks, Bill.
So this is on par with the NBA scoring championship, like, you know, what LeBron had when he passed Kareem.
Yep.
It's a longevity thing.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's go here. Talk a little Chargers. This is with Tampster All Norm. He says, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, NFL draft question. If the Chargers somehow at number 22 have both Grant and Loveland on the board, which would they choose? I think Grant first, then Loveland.
Are you talking about Mason Grant? I think the defensive tackle from Michigan. He's not going to be there. I assume that he might go inside the top 10 picks. Grant is visiting, the Michigan defensive tackle is visiting a bunch of teams within the top 6. I don't know if that's a smokescreen or not. Loveland is a really good pass catcher. I guess taking a tight end at 22 would make sense. He's had injury problems. He's not the blocker that you really want sometimes with tight ends, but if he's Brock Bowers reincarnated, yeah, maybe you do that. But, you know, the Chargers have so many needs. They still need a legitimate burner wide receiver who has tremendous speed. They don't have that yet. I still think they need help at the inside big wide body defensive tackle because they got hurt. I mean, they're starting 2 defensive tackles, and they signed a couple guys off the free agent market, but one of those guys has hardly ever started. The second one didn't start. So you're basing a lot that these guys can be coached up, but you got experience, you need size and bulk. And so if they had the right defensive tackle, maybe, but they'll get a good player at 22 because it is a really good deep draft. And it's a good draft for speed wide receivers. It is a deeper draft for tight ends, but normally it's not sexy to take a tight end in the first round, but this could happen because it's such a unique year. They need a defensive tackle. I still think they need offensive line help too. But there may be a run on those guys pretty early. So it's going to be fascinating. We'll talk more about the draft in the next couple of weeks.
So what's your take on the Charger offensive line? Because they sort of reshuffle the deck. Like, isn't Zion Johnson moving, or is that a done deal?
At this point in time, Rashawn Slater starts at left tackle. At left guard, they've just dropped the hint. They're going to move Trey Pipkins, the massive wide body right guard, over to left guard. But that can't be a lock because he struggled at right guard after failing at right tackle. So I don't know that Pipkins is the answer at left guard. Zion Johnson, the left guard, is going to be given snaps at center. He's not undersized, but he's not the warrior. But he's a really smart guy. I don't like Bozeman. I think he was one of the lowest rated centers. They re-signed him to a 2-year contract. Obviously, getting Michael Becton from the Jets and the Eagles, he'll be the right guard, and Joe Alt will be the right tackle. I am referring to the right side of the Charger offensive line as the Mountain Men. So with Joe Alt and Becton, that's massively big. But Philadelphia guy told me the reason the Eagles weren't interested in retaining Becton is they were not going to pay him $10 million a year. Secondly, there's a history of knee problems there, and they felt that they had a really good year with Becton, but they didn't know if they could get that on a year-by-year basis. Could he physically hold up? Because he had multiple knee problems while he was with the Jets as a tackle. Philadelphia said, let's move this wide body inside where all he has to do is play this square of real estate. He played pretty well, held up there. But so the Chargers got him on a multi-year contract, and he's going to be the guy. But the mountain men on the right side of the line, when they stand up, there'll be a shadow. They block the sun. I mean, it's so huge.
Student body right?
Oh, big time. So that's where we are. We'll look for the draft to see where it goes. Thanks for the input. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go here to social media. This comment was a number of days ago, but it's still relevant. And this is from Jack, and he says, Padres about to be 4-0 to start the season. After today, a lot of likes, not of dislikes. That's one man's opinion.
Cutting edge baseball. God's not going to take back the 7 wins they already have. They've earned it. Now they go on the road, and let's just see if this continues. But to me, the intangible thing, nobody's talked about it, nobody's written about it, is the top half of the batting order, everybody is having a wicked start because they're all healthy. Tatis is healthy. Machado is healthy. That's huge. Those guys are both hitting over 400. So, end of the day, so far, so good. Let's just see where they go as they head out to Wrigleyville, play the Cubs, and we'll go from there. But this pretty cool start. And like I said, the picture that I got in my head is after yesterday's game. Right there, they took a picture of the scoreboard. Gold banner, brown lettering, sweep. Pretty
sweet.
Cool.
You notice they're using that new font? I'm not big on that either.
I get a sense that might be a lead into something new they're going to do with the uniforms a year from now. Don't
the City Connects or something, but it's just a different way to present it. But you got to love this. And like we were expecting all these veterans to come in and sort of flame out, but Yuli Gurriel had that one RBI single through the 5.5 hole a few games ago. Do you think he has a chance to be productive all year?
I think he'll be a role player. Sheets is hitting 444.
Yeah.
Now, has he reinvented himself? Have they found something? And if they have, then Victor Rodriguez, hitting coach of the year. The White Sox are in Chicago. One of the beat writers wrote, how come nobody in Chicago could unlock the mystery of Gavin Sheets, and yet he goes to San Diego and look what's happened? So we'll see if this is the real deal. But he's playing with great confidence, and he's putting the ball in play, and he's hitting some bombs, and so far, so good.
Yeah, the White Sox are like the Padres farm team. Usually you say that with the Yankees and the Royals or something.
All right.
Okay, let's go here to talk a little torpedo bats with Quackiny 5. He says, hey, regarding the new torpedo bats, someday a pitcher is going to get killed. The increased exit velocity with the new bats will exacerbate the already at risk no man's land position of pitchers to hard comebackers. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the reasons MLB would not allow the use of metal bats. Unless MLB makes helmets, face masks mandatory for pitchers, someone will get killed or permanently disabled. Bobby Miller was very fortunate he didn't get seriously injured this spring.
Well, he was, because that he got hit up here, the hard bone part. If that had come down here, it would have been just catastrophic. And I mean, we're talking severe eye injury to the Dodger young pitcher. It's interesting, though, the reaction. The torpedo bat idea has been out there for the last year and a half, and guys have experimented with it, and other people said, nah, I'm not touching this. I'm not changing what I'm doing. It's got me to the major leagues. Other guys are doing it. I don't know if this is going to take off, or is this an aberration, etc. Baseball is allowing it. The thing that I talked about this last week, thing that to me is the most unique thing, is the torpedo bat has to do with the arrangement. How can I put this over here? The arrangement of how thick the wood is here goes down. And just before you get to the top of the label, then the bat comes in like that, and it's a thin thing going down to the handle. So my whole theory is I'm jamming you. And if you're going to hit on the inside corner, you're going to probably hit down here, and the bat's going to break. Now, if I lay it out over the outer edge of the plate, where the bulk of the big bat is, you're going to probably hit one out of the park on me. But we'll see. A lot of guys have said no. Mike Trout said, yeah, I experimented. I'm not touching that thing.
Yeah, to me, this is a lot like the tush push. It's an innovative idea within the boundaries of the rules, and no one had really thought it through to this extent.
But it's been approved. The weight and the length of the bat has been approved by Major League Baseball in terms of where the thickness is versus where it's thin. So baseball's already signed off and said, this is okay, it's legal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's an interesting development. Plus, it gives people in the media something to talk about. Okay, let's keep going here. Talk some NHL. This is with Dave, and he goes, Winnipeg was swept in the season series versus the LA Kings.
Well, I mean, for the Kings to go in and beat the Jets there, that was pretty impressive. Beating them here the other night, that was impressive. But the Kings are just playing in a different world right now. I think the Kings' record might be 11-3-2 in their last 15 or 16 games. I mean, they're just rocking and rolling. So they're hot going to postseason. So the playoffs will be good because there's obviously some really good teams on the East. And damn, I pay so much attention to everything going on in the West. It's just absolutely amazing.
Now, you were talking in the last podcast about how the East and the West, they take the top 6 and then they take 2 wild cards.
Yeah.
But do they still have those division names like the Norris division and
Yeah, they changed. There's the Metropolitan Division, the Atlantic Division. They've rearranged the names. It's not the Norris Division
anymore. It always reminds me of Chris Berman and the NFC Central. But now when this is interesting to me, it's like the way schedules are built. So are the Jets in the East, the Kings obviously in the West, so they only play each other once at home and once on the road?
No, the Jets are in a different division, but the Jets are in the Western Conference.
Oh. Okay.
West Manitoba. You cut classes. They taught geography at UCSD, right?
Yeah. Well, you gotta. Yeah.
You went to the beach.
2/3 of the population is on the East Coast. So sometimes you forget that.
Yeah. Everything west of Minnesota is in the Western.
But they're
Conference.
in a different division.
Yes.
Right. But both in the Western Conference.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Playoffs are going to be great. They start in a couple of weeks. Okay, move on quickly.
Okay, quickly. We'll go here to Silva Girls. Because, hey, Lee, starting to see a negative Padres trend here. Talking about your Padres Peoria problems commentary. Maybe time for a little break from the app.
Bud. No. I'm telling you what I like. I'm telling you what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about makes a lot of sense. If they have any injuries to their front 3 starters, they're in a world of hurt. Because Darvish is not back and there will be no Joe Musgrove sighting. I'm not being negative. I'm just telling you what my concern would be. So far, so good. 7-0. This has really been great. But at the end of the day, I always look at things from the big picture. Okay. So don't view it that I'm bashing on the Padres. I'm just telling you, this is what I see. This is what might concern me if anything happens. This is where they're strong. You're not calling to say thanks because I complimented them because they're 8 freaking deep in the bullpen. Come on now. You can't cherry pick and say I'm being Mr. Negative. I'm not. I'm just telling you what I are. Is there anybody out there likes the way I do this podcast? Because all I do is get crap. You can't believe my emails, the amount of crap I get. That's okay.
Yeah. You do get
John knows what heat I take. That's okay.
He shares with me some of the highlighted ones. But to this point here, I think any rational Padre fan going into the season knew there were question marks. And we saw what the Dodgers did, and we're all thinking, oh, wow, we have no chance to win the division. And we weren't sure about the 4 and 5 hole in the rotation. And Darvish was gone.
And the bench bunch. And
and you got like Yuli Gurriel, and, you're like Gavin Sheets. So the fact that they've won 7 in a row out of the gate, we've got to be overjoyed. They're far exceeding expectations.
I concur. And they are really playing with an edge. I think that's the most unique thing to me is this is it just feels like we're in a pennant race. It feels like August, September of last year. They were 43-19, that whole back half of the schedule. That's what this feels like, at least out of the gate.
So now they're 50-19, right? That's pretty damn good. Okay, let's, you talk about getting hate mail. Let's go over here. And this is from Sean about the whole Trump Dodgers visiting the White House thing. And he says, so sadly, I subscribe to your channel for news and opinions on sports. I love your coverage. I need a place that has no politics because I'm tired of it. Sports is something that can bring people together regardless of political ideology. Whoever you love and hate in politics does not matter to me. I just don't want to hear it. You lost a fan. I have other choices that focus only on sports.
Sean, I don't want you walking around the streets of Southern California uninformed. By the way, the political issue was at the intersection with Dodger baseball. So therefore it's a sports issue. So we have to express an opinion. And if I'm not expressing an honest opinion about whatever the topic is, then I'm not doing my job. So that was one given day with an opinion. Does that wipe out all the greatness of this podcast? Does it wipe out all the unique things on my website? Are you eliminating 28 years of award-winning sports talk radio because you didn't like one day and what was said about the Dodgers in the White House? Let's not overreact here, because under the banner of the First Amendment, you're entitled to your opinion, but I'm entitled to my opinion. No? Yes?
Yeah. It's just there's been a lot of reaction.
Oh, you think?
And and you've been getting emails, which you've shared with me, people reading on the website, and then people responding in social media. And I have a theory that of the people that complained to you about your stance on this Trump Dodgers thing, 90% of them are probably Trump fans. And it's usually the people that want to get politics out of sports are the ones that want to get rid of people who have a political opinion they don't like, So it's just funny how that works. But, Flegel is another guy that's often on our live stream here in the fans forum. And he was swapping comments with me on Twitter. And he's saying, I love what you do, with sports and the commentary you guys bring to the table, because I wish you had more interviews with some players and coaches and things, but you really don't need to do the politics.
So if I do great content 99.999% of the time, that's not good enough for you? Come on now.
You said a lot worse in the world of sports than you have about Trump in the world of politics.
Okay, let's do one more here before we wrap this thing up.
Okay, and let's go here talk some Dodgers, and this is with Elba. It says, hey, do you like the Dodger manager or their analytics team?
I like the manager a great deal. I think he's smart. I think he's unique. I think his ability to control a clubhouse of millionaires - billionaires without egos, I think that's pretty impressive. Sometimes game management calls are really questionable, but sometimes that comes downstairs from the analytics. I will say this. The whole world is on analytics now in Major League Baseball. And what the point that was driven home to me at the end of last season in the playoffs, when the Dodgers came from being face down in the gutter, down 2-1, and having to go with a bullpen day because they ran out of arms, what their analytics guys did to shut out the Padres 24 straight scoreless innings was staggering. Just absolutely amazing. Granted, the players have to do it on the field, but the Dodgers created the matchups that they thought were going to win, and they went 24 straight innings and eliminated the Padres from what I thought could be a Padre World Series team. So I have to respect them for that. Does it always work out? No, because it is a player performance game. But I think there's a lot of intangibles to Dave Roberts, the person that we need to pay attention to for what he got accomplished. What he did at Dodger Stadium within that clubhouse was unlike what Bob Melvin could not do when the Padres thought they were a real good team just 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and it just totally blew up. Roberts kept it under control. Melvin or Preller, because of whose fingerprints were on what, didn't get it done. That make any sense?
Yeah, it does, and it's funny. There's still some Dodger fans that don't like Dave Roberts. They question his decisions. They think he's like Pat Riley. Like he could just show up, and just roll the ball out onto the court, and Magic and James Worthy and Kareem will win the games for them every time.
Dodgers got a really good team. He might be able to roll that ball out on the mound and say, boys, go give me that win.
Yeah, exactly. Now, just another kind of a twist on this. The analytics side of it is interesting in baseball because I'm going to shift back to the Padres for a minute. Take a player like Jake Cronenworth, who was terrific in his first few years, and he's kind of slid a little bit offensively. But now against left-handed pitchers, he's not playing. And so, on one level, they want to bench their left-handed hitters against a tough lefty. You heard that old manager talk. But I'd imagine that the analytics guys are sitting down with Cronenworth and showing him the numbers. Mm-hmm. And he's got to face the data, and that's got to be a little bit of humble pie to have to sit.
It happens, and doesn't mean a guy can't improve and get better. The one thing I like about Schilt, and this is an intangible, he's a thinking man's manager. And I've talked to him, and you sit and you listen to some of the interviews now, and he scopes out this matchup and why this works and what we're doing in this set of circumstances and why we're doing it. Pitcher versus batter, batter versus pitcher, right-hander versus left-hander, etc. I mean, it's a real thinking man's game now because of the analytics guys upstairs. I think Schilt is really, really a smart cookie. So.
Well, I've noticed that in the post-game pressers, the journalist will ask a question. It's sort of the obvious question, and I think I know what the obvious answer is going to be.
But he goes a little deeper.
Yes, he does. He goes and he starts talking about things that I had not even considered. And I'm like, okay, I'm a fan. He knows what he's doing in that dugout.
I agree. Hey, listen, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast.